My name is Anna Carter. I'm 31 years old, a single mother, and for the last 4 months my son and I had been living out of an extended stay motel on the edge of Columbus after our landlord sold the building with barely any notice. I worked overnight as a pharmacy technician at a hospital, slept in broken pieces, and spent every spare hour trying to find something stable before Liam noticed just how unstable our life had become. So when my brother's wedding invitation arrived with gold lettering and fake warmth, I should have thrown it away. Instead, I put Liam in the one button-down shirt that still fit him, fixed my own makeup in the motel mirror, and told myself I could survive one afternoon of family pretending to be decent people. I was wrong. The second we stepped into that glass-walled country club, I felt it. The glances, the whispers, the little pauses that happen when people know something ugly about you and are trying to decide whether to say it out loud. My brother hugged me too quickly. My mother looked me up and down like I'd brought embarrassment in with me. My father smiled without warmth. Even the bride's relatives were studying me, curious, as if they'd heard about the poor single mother in the family and were waiting to see whether I looked as pathetic as advertised. Then the ceremony ended. The champagne started flowing, and I made the mistake of believing the worst thing that could happen was being ignored. A few minutes later, my brother stood up with a microphone, tapped the glass, looked directly at me, and opened his speech with a joke about family baggage. Have you ever walked into a family event already knowing you were the target, and still stayed because your child was holding your hand? How are you feeling in your heart right now as you listen to this? Angry for me? Heavy? Or does this hit a little too close to home? I really want to know what this is stirring up inside you. It makes sharing the rest feel a lot less lonely. The reception had barely settled when he started. The room was glowing with candlelight and soft violin covers of love songs. Servers were gliding between tables with expensive wine, and everyone was looking at my brother like he was the perfect groom, polished suit, easy smile, golden boy posture. He thanked the guests, thanked the bride's parents, thanked everyone who helped make this day possible. And for one stupid second I thought maybe he would leave me out of it. Then he laughed into the microphone and said, "Every family has that one person who teaches you what not to do with your life." A few people chuckled automatically. He kept going. He said while he was starting his future, his sister was still figuring out shelters, bad choices, and baby daddy disasters. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like I might actually fall out of my chair. He looked straight at my table and said, "Let's all be grateful we didn't seat the bride's family too close to my sister Anna. We didn't want them thinking homelessness was one of the wedding themes." The whole room burst into laughter. Not everyone, but enough that it hit like a slap. I heard silverware clink, heard someone repeat the word homeless under their breath, heard Liam shift in his chair and whisper, "Mom?" before I could even breathe again. And then my mother, sitting 2 seats away in a navy dress she made me compliment earlier, leaned toward one of the bride's aunts and said loud enough for half the room to hear, "Anna always was a used product. Trouble follows women who don't listen." More laughter. Smaller this time, uglier. My father tried to cover his grin with his drink, but I saw it. I saw all of it. My brother was grinning like he'd finally landed the joke he'd been rehearsing for years. My mother looked pleased with herself. My father looked entertained. And my little boy was staring at them, then at me, then at the floor, trying to understand why adults in formal clothes were laughing at his mother like she was some kind of act. People love to talk about rock bottom like it's a dramatic moment with tears and screaming. Mine was quieter. It was hearing my son ask in the smallest voice, "Why are they saying mean things to you?" while a room full of dressed-up strangers waited to see whether I would swallow it like I always had. I should tell you something here, because it mattered more than any of them knew. I was not homeless because I was lazy, reckless, or irresponsible. I was in that motel because I'd spent the last year paying off the medical debt my ex left behind after disappearing, because I refused to let Liam sleep in a car, and because every decent apartment wanted proof of savings I'd already burned through keeping my son safe. But my family had turned that struggle into a storyline. In their version, I was the cautionary tale. In mine, I was the only one in that room who knew how hard survival actually was. My brother lifted his glass and kept going. He joked that the bride should feel lucky because, unlike certain women in our family, she knew how to keep a man, keep a home, and keep her dignity. A few people gasped. Others laughed because weak people always do when cruelty wears a tuxedo and calls itself humor. I looked at the bride then, really looked at her, expecting embarrassment, maybe discomfort, maybe even approval. Instead, I saw something else. Her jaw had gone tight. Her hand was clenched so hard around her napkin I thought it might rip. And when my mother muttered, "Tell them the part about the motel," I realized the worst line hadn't even come yet. He did tell them. He smiled, paused for effect, then said, "For anyone worried, don't be. Anna and her kid are safe. They're currently enjoying luxury accommodations at the extended stay off Route 40. He dragged out luxury like that made it funnier. Someone at the back actually snorted. Liam's fingers tightened around mine so hard they hurt, and I welcomed the pain because it kept me from falling apart. "Mom," he whispered, "can we go?" That should have been enough. That should have been the moment I grabbed my purse, took my son, and let them rot in their own ugliness. But then my brother added one more line, one I don't think he fully understood until later. He leaned into the mic and said, "If this marriage ever gets rough, at least now Claire knows what not to become." That was the moment something in me stopped bending. Not because he insulted me. He'd been doing that in one form or another since we were kids. Not because my mother joined in. She'd spent half my life treating love like a prize only certain daughters deserved. Not even because my father sat there like a coward. It was because my son had to hear it. It was because my brother used my hardest year as wedding entertainment and expected me to stay seated so he could finish his applause line. "Enough," I said, but the first time it barely came out. My throat was tight. My face was burning. And half the room was still in that nervous post-laughter fog where people are waiting to see if the victim will play along. So I stood up, chair scraping, glasses turning, music dying, and I said it again, louder. "Enough." This time the room heard me. My brother lowered the mic just a little, like he was amused, like I was about to make this even more fun for him. I could feel everyone watching, my mother already preparing that injured expression she used whenever I stopped being convenient, my father sitting back like a spectator, the bride absolutely still beside the sweetheart table. "You wanted a speech?" I said. "Fine, here's one. I'm a single mother. I work nights in a hospital while my son sleeps beside a motel lamp because life hit us hard. That's true. What's also true is that I never once used anyone's worst year as a punchline. I never once needed a room full of strangers to clap for my cruelty. And I never once looked at a child and decided humiliating his mother would make me sound successful." No one laughed now. Not a sound. My brother tried to recover first, smiling that smug smile people use when they're caught, and still think charisma can save them. "Come on, Anna," he said into the mic. "Don't be dramatic. We're joking." I looked straight at him and asked the question I wish I had asked years earlier. Would you still call it a joke if someone said it about your bride? About her body? Her past? Her family? Or is it only funny when the target is someone you've trained your whole life to stay quiet? That landed. You could feel it. A few guests looked at Claire. A few looked at me. My mother pushed back her chair and snapped, "Sit down, Anna, you're embarrassing yourself." I almost laughed at that. "No," I said, turning toward her. I'm embarrassing the people who deserve it. Then I said the part I hadn't planned to say, the part that came from months of swallowing too much. You call me a used product because a man left me with debt and a child? That says everything about you and nothing about me. Liam is not shame. My life is not shame. The only shame in this room is what you three are doing right now in front of him. I felt Liam press against my side. I bent down for just 1 second and asked softly, "Do you want to leave?" He nodded. Then I looked back up at the room and asked, "Tell me honestly, if your family mocked you in front of your child, would you stay seated and smile for their wedding photos?" I picked up my purse. I took Liam's hand. My brother opened his mouth again, probably to throw one last cheap line after me. He never got the chance. Because just as I turned to walk away, the bride stood up, reached across him, and took the microphone out of his hand. The room froze so fast it felt unreal. Claire didn't snatch the microphone in a dramatic movie star way. She took it with cold, controlled precision, the kind that scares people more because it means the anger is deliberate. My brother actually laughed at first, nervous and confused, like he thought she was about to smooth it over. "Baby, it's fine," he whispered, reaching for her arm. She stepped away from him. That was the first crack. Then she faced the room, looked directly at me, then at Liam, then at the Carter side of the family table and said, "No, it's not fine." You could hear people inhale. My mother straightened in her seat. My father looked annoyed already, as if the bride was breaking some unspoken agreement that women were supposed to keep ugly men comfortable during public disasters. Claire kept going. "I need everyone here to know something," she said. "I was told Anna had chosen a chaotic life. I was told she was unstable, selfish, and always making herself the victim. I was told the reason she and Liam were in a motel was because she pushed away everyone who tried to help her." She paused and looked at my brother. That was a lie. My brother's face changed. Not guilt. Panic. Real panic. "Claire," he said sharply, "not here." But she was already beyond him. "3 weeks ago," she said, "I found out Michael asked Anna for money for this wedding and told me my parents were covering a budget problem. He never told me she said no. He never told me he was mocking the same sister he tried to squeeze for cash after she paid for a tux deposit last year and never got repaid." The room stirred. My mother stood halfway up. "That is private family business," she hissed. Claire turned on her so quickly Susan sat back down. "Oh, now we care about dignity?" Claire asked. Interesting timing. Then she dropped the second crack. "And since we're being honest, maybe we should mention the messages your son sent me about Anna. Or the ones you sent about me. Because I have those too." I watched my brother go pale in real time. My father muttered, "Claire, enough." She ignored him. "Michael told me Anna was a burden. Then he told his friends she was a great example of what happens when a woman loses market value." A few people gasped outright now. "Your mother," she said, looking at Susan, "texted me that if I was smart, I'd make sure Michael never ended up dragging around dead weight the way Daniel did." My father looked up so fast it was almost comical. Claire's voice stayed steady. "So let's stop pretending this is one bad joke at a wedding. This is who they are when they think other women should know their place." My brother lunged for the microphone. "Give me that," he snapped. Claire stepped back again. "No, you've had the floor your whole life." Then she said something I didn't know until that moment. "And while we're at it, I should thank Anna. Because if she hadn't warned me last month to double-check the vendor invoices Michael wanted me to sign, I never would have seen the charges he hid." The room went dead silent. My brother didn't even try to speak this time. Claire looked at the guests, Then down at the papers on the table beside her. She actually had them with her. Michael moved money between our wedding account and his personal card debt. Twice. Then blamed unexpected floral costs. He asked me to sign off on it after I'd had champagne at a tasting. He assumed I wouldn't notice. Someone from her side of the family swore under his breath. My mother started saying, "That's out of context. That's not what happened." But even she sounded weak now. Claire held up her hand and finished the sentence that broke the night in half. "So no, I'm not going to stand here while a dishonest man and his parents humiliate the one person in this family who actually told me the truth." Then she turned to me and said, clearly enough for every guest to hear, "Anna, don't leave yet. None of this should end with you walking out ashamed." I didn't move. Not because I suddenly felt strong, but because my legs had gone unsteady from the whiplash of humiliation turning into exposure in under 2 minutes. Liam was pressed against me, peeking out from my side, and I could feel the entire room shifting, people resorting their loyalties in real time. My brother finally found his voice. "She's twisting everything," he said, face flushed, collar tight, the golden groom now looking like exactly what he was. A man who expected his cruelty to land cleaner than his fraud. "Anna put things in her head because she's jealous." Claire actually laughed at that, short and sharp. "Jealous of what? Your debt? Your ego? Or your habit of insulting women privately and smiling publicly?" Some of the bride's cousins laughed. This time the laughter was on the other side. My mother stood up fully now, hands trembling with rage. "You ungrateful little girl," she snapped at Claire. "We welcomed you into this family." Claire's father rose from his table so suddenly his chair tipped backward. "No," he said, voice like ice. "My daughter was about to marry into your family. Past tense, depending on what I hear next." That sent a visible shock through the room. My brother whipped around. "Can we please not do this here?" he demanded. And there it was. That line people like him always use when the truth arrives in public. Not because they care about dignity, but because public consequences feel unfair to people who had no problem delivering public cruelty. Claire set the microphone down on the table, but she wasn't done. "You want private?" she said. "Fine, let's be private. Let's go upstairs and look at the screenshots, the account transfers, and the texts where you called me an investment worth managing, and Anna, a cautionary tale with eyeliner." That last line landed like a bomb because it was too specific to be fake. My father finally pushed himself to his feet and tried the old patriarch move, low voice, firm face, acting as though authority alone could restore order. "This wedding will continue," he said. "Everybody calm down." Nobody listened. One of Claire's bridesmaids muttered, "Absolutely not." Her mother was already at the sweetheart table gathering documents. Her father was on his phone, probably with a lawyer or security or both. My brother reached for Claire again, and this time she recoiled like his hand disgusted her. "Don't touch me," she said. "Not after what I read." Then she looked at me and asked the question no one in my family had asked all year. "Are you and Liam okay?" I nodded once, too stunned to do more. "Good," she said, "because I need everyone to understand something else. Anna did not come to me begging for sympathy. She came to me because she saw a billing discrepancy and thought I deserved to know before I signed a marriage license with a man hiding debt." My brother barked out a laugh. "She was snooping." Claire's expression hardened. "No, she was helping me when you disappeared during planning meetings, and she noticed your numbers didn't match." "You know, because she's competent." There was a murmur through the bride's side. Competent. That single word did something to me I can't fully explain. My whole family had spent years rewriting my life as failure. Yet one honest woman with a microphone had seen what I actually was in the middle of my hardest season. Tired, struggling, but still competent, still decent, still the person who warned her instead of letting her walk blindly into a mess. My mother tried one last pivot. She pointed at me and said, "Anna loves chaos. She always drags people into her misery." That was when Naomi, my best friend from the hospital, stood up from the table I hadn't even realized she'd reached. She had come late from shift and slipped in quietly during dinner. Now she crossed her arms and said, loud and clear, "That's funny, because I've watched Anna work 12-hour overnights, pick up extra shifts, and still show up for Liam with more grace than this whole family has shown in 5 minutes." My brother rolled his eyes. "Who even are you?" Naomi smiled without warmth. "A witness." More guests murmured. The bride's father stepped toward Michael and said, "You will not speak to my daughter, or any guest, until we sort out the financial issue you hid, and this reception is over." Over. Just like that. A wedding reception worth tens of thousands of dollars, candles, flowers, string quartet, cake, speeches, reputation, all of it collapsing under the weight of one man's arrogance and 3 relatives' cruelty. Then Claire took off her engagement ring. Not her wedding band, because they hadn't done that part yet. Not legally. Just the ring that had made her believe she was choosing a future. She placed it on the head table in front of my brother and said, "Find another woman to sponsor your image. I'm done." The room erupted, not in laughter now, but in overlapping voices. Shock, whispers, outrage. Liam looked up at me wide-eyed and whispered, "Mom, is she leaving him?" I looked at my brother, at my mother's fury, at my father's helpless silence, and for the first time all day, my answer felt honest. "Yes," I said softly, "she is." What happened next felt less like one scene and more like a chain reaction. Once the bride's family understood the wedding money issue was real, they stopped being polite. Her father demanded the planner bring every vendor invoice. Her mother asked the venue coordinator to lock the gift table until both families' contributions were reviewed. One of Claire's uncles, a CPA apparently, was already comparing numbers on his phone while Michael kept insisting everything was a misunderstanding. But misunderstandings don't usually come with hidden transfers and carefully rehearsed speeches aimed at humiliating your sister before dessert. My mother, realizing the room had turned, did what she always did when she couldn't control the narrative. She came for me. She marched across the floor in heels and rage, stopped inches from my face and hissed, "Are you happy now? You ruin everything you touch." Old Anna might have flinched. Old Anna might have apologized just to end the scene. But after what she'd let happen to Liam, after what she'd said in public, all I felt was distance. "No," I told her. "Michael ruined his wedding. You just helped." Her mouth fell open. My father stepped in then, finally trying to play peacekeeper now that the damage could hit his image too. "Let's go somewhere and talk," he said. "This family doesn't need an audience." "You had no problem with an audience 10 minutes ago," I said. "You laughed." He started to deny it, then stopped because we both knew lying would only make him look worse in a room full of witnesses. Across the dance floor, Claire was speaking quietly with her parents and the planner. She caught my eye and walked over. "My attorney aunt wants copies of everything," she said. I told her Anna was the one who noticed the discrepancies, not the one who caused them. My brother threw up his hands. "Can everyone stop acting like I robbed a bank?" B. Claire's father answered before anyone else could. "You diverted joint funds and lied before marriage. That's enough for me." Naomi let out the kind of tiny, approving breath only friends understand. Meanwhile, guests had fully split into camps. People from my family's side pretending not to stare, people from the bride's side staring openly, and a handful of decent human beings finally walking over to me to say what should have been said from the beginning. "I'm sorry. That was disgusting." Your son shouldn't have seen that. Each apology felt late but still strangely healing. Then came the part my brother never saw coming. One of the groomsmen, apparently tired of being loyal to a man like Michael, handed Claire his phone and said, "You might want these too." Michael went white. Claire looked down, scrolled, and her expression changed from anger to something flatter, colder. "Wow," she said. "So it wasn't just misogyny and money." She looked at Michael. "You were also workshopping your speech in a group chat." My brother lunged for the phone. Her cousin blocked him. Claire read one line out loud before deciding that was enough. Opening with homeless single mom, closing with used product. Crowd will eat it up if mom jumps in. Gasps. Actual gasps. My mother stammered, "That's not..." But no one believed her now, not after she'd literally delivered the line on cue. My father looked sick. Not morally, just socially. Like a man realizing his family would not survive this night with its reputation intact. Good. Some things deserve not to survive. Claire handed the phone to her father. "We're done here," she said. "Completely." Then she turned to Liam, crouched to his level despite her dress and ruined makeup, and said, "I'm sorry you had to hear grown-ups act cruel. None of what they said about your mom is true." Liam looked at her for a second, then nodded, the solemn nod children give when they understand more than adults think. "My mom works really hard," he said. Claire smiled sadly. "I can tell." That nearly broke me, not because it was dramatic, but because it was simple. Recognition. Truth. My mother scoffed, maybe from reflex, maybe from inability to stop being herself. "This is unbelievable," she muttered. Naomi rounded on her and said, "No, what's unbelievable is that you thought humiliating Anna in front of her child would have no consequences." For the first time in my life, my mother had no comeback. Just anger and the sound of other people no longer backing away from it. Claire's parents escorted her from the room. The planner announced the reception was concluded. Vendors began quietly shutting things down. Guests started leaving in clusters, whispering. My brother stood in the wreckage of centerpieces and reputation, looking less like a groom than like a man who had confused power with immunity. He called after me when I finally took Liam's hand and headed for the exit. "Anna, if you walk out now, don't ever come back acting like family matters." I stopped, turned, and gave him the truest answer I had. Family mattered. That's why tonight hurt. But whatever you three are, it isn't that. Then I walked out under the porte-cochere with my son, my friend, and the strangest feeling in my chest. Not triumph exactly, more like oxygen after years underground. Outside, the night air was cool, and the country club lights looked softer from a distance, almost innocent, which made me hate them a little. Liam climbed into the back seat of Naomi's car and asked in a sleepy voice, "Are we in trouble?" I turned around from the passenger seat and told him, "No, baby, we're leaving trouble." On the drive back toward the motel, my phone started exploding, first with calls from my mother, then my father, then two cousins who had never once checked on me when rent was due, but suddenly cared now that the family image was bleeding out on marble floors. I silenced them all. A few minutes later, one message came through from an unknown number. It was Claire. Just one line. "Thank you for telling me the truth before it was too late." Another message followed right after. "My father's attorney will contact me tomorrow. If they try to blame you, I won't let them." I stared at that for a long second, then put the phone down. Because here's the thing no one tells you about revenge. Sometimes it isn't screaming. Sometimes it isn't some perfectly rehearsed takedown. Sometimes it's surviving long enough and staying honest long enough that cruel people finally expose themselves in front of the wrong witness. I didn't ruin my brother's wedding. He did that the moment he decided humiliation was a performance and women were props. My mother helped because cruelty was easier for her than compassion. My father helped because silence is what cowards call neutrality. And the bride finished it because truth reached her before vows did. When we got back to the motel, Liam took off his little dress shoes, curled up on the bed, and said, "I like the bride." I laughed for the first time all day. "Me too," I told him. Then he looked up at me and asked, "Are we still poor?" Kids have a way of cutting straight to the bone. I sat beside him and answered carefully, "We're still rebuilding, but we're not what they called us." He nodded like that made sense, and to him, maybe it did. After he fell asleep, I stood by the window looking out at the highway lights and realized something had changed. My family had spent years defining me by what I lacked: husband, house, approval, ease. But tonight, in front of everyone, they lost something bigger than I did. My brother lost his bride. My mother lost control of the story. My father lost the safety of pretending laughter wasn't loyalty to cruelty. And me? I lost the last illusion that if I kept shrinking, they might one day love me better. That loss felt like freedom. The next morning, Claire's father paid for 2 weeks at a furnished apartment through a women's housing contact his company supported, and called it a temporary gesture for someone my future son-in-law tried to humiliate. I almost refused. But then I looked at Liam eating hotel waffles on a paper plate and accepted, not as pity, but as a bridge. 2 months later, I signed the lease on a small 2-bedroom near Liam's school. 3 months after that, Claire's attorney confirmed Michael had paid back the misused wedding funds under threat of civil action from both families. Susan stopped calling when she realized guilt had expired. Daniel sent one email pretending he wanted reconciliation, but even that sounded mostly like image repair. Michael tried once to say I had destroyed his life, and I finally answered the way I should have years ago. No, I just stopped protecting you from yourself. So yes, at my brother's wedding, he mocked me in a speech and called me a homeless single mom. My mother called me a used product. My father laughed behind his glass. Then the bride grabbed the mic, and the whole room froze. And by the end of the night, the only people truly disgraced were the ones who thought humiliating me would make them look bigger. Tell me honestly, if your own family publicly humiliated you, would you forgive them because they share your blood, or would you let the truth collect its own debt?